The ballasting of the bridge is done. Wasn't too bad. Had to check a few tutorials to just refresh my memory. Had to be really careful around here, you know, to make sure that this didn't gum up everything over here. So that came out okay. And I did notice that once I had everything down and ballasted, I lost connection between these two pieces of track and these two pieces of track. And I don't know why. The ties were still attached there, so, you know, the joiners were still attached. So I have no idea why it suddenly lost connection. But what I did is I just went in and I just soldered across the tracks on each side, and that restored everything. So now it's working fine. I also notice I painted the edges here green. I also gave this a new coat of blue, a shiny blue on here, a gloss blue. Doesn't quite match this, so I'm probably gonna try to clean it up a bit more to get much more accurate color matching here before I put the sedge and stuff down. But I noticed once I painted this, the homosote swelled and this wouldn't fit properly anymore, so I had to sand down the homosote again and sand down this side. But now everything fits fine, bridge goes up and down fine, and the rolling stock is fine. Perfect. And backwards. And it's the same on the other track. I'm not going to bore you by trying to line up the wheels on this to get the engine on the other track, but works the same way. Beautiful. So now that that's done, now I can go ahead and put the top of the bridge on. And that will finish up the bridge, and then I can start ballasting the rest of it. And what I did is I found on Thingiverse, somebody had made a little ballast feeder, which is nice. You can regulate the amount of ballast going in by pulling on this. If I can focus it. There we go. So that's nice. And it fits right down on the track. And all you do is you just slide it through on the track while it's open, and it will just automatically drop the ballast nice and even all along here and on both sides. So that will make my job a little easier rather than trying to brush it on, which I was doing on the bridge, and that was a bit tedious. Let's get the top of the bridge on. This is not what I expected to be a problem. Since it's supposedly PLA, I have my PLA glue and it's just not holding. I tried 2 different types of glues and neither of them are working. So I filed things down and I went back to my PLA and I'm clamping it, and I'm just going to leave it here for a couple hours because PLA glue usually sets up in a few seconds, but I'm not going to take any chances. I'm just going to keep this clamped here. And then come back to it in a bit, and I'm going to see what's going on. And if this doesn't hold, then I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I guess the only other option would be to drill into here and then put a screw into each side. You know, on PLA, since it's all built in layers, it often doesn't hold very well, but that might be my only option to put the top on. We shall see if the glue works. Hooray! The bridge is finished. It took me most of the day, because what I did is I did use the PLA glue I have, and all I did was simply put lots of it on there, clamp it, and I just let it sit there for hours. And I did it only on this, on the top, and on the end. So these are still a little bouncy. You know, not too, but what I might do is just print out some small pieces of gray PLA and glue it under here and then onto the bottom of this. So just it gives a little more support there, so it's not as bouncy. But other than that, that's looking good. So now I can start moving on to ballasting the rest of the track with my new little ballast depositor. One other little thing I forgot to mention is, for those of you that are new to this, like I am, when you have put the track together, when you joined pieces of track, you normally have to remove some ties in order to get the joiners in place. And if you ballast with the joiners not there, it looks weird because there's a big gap between sections of track. And so what I do is I go take spare pieces of track that I was throwing away, small pieces, and I cut off all the sleepers, these things, and I just slide them under where they would normally be. And so you can't really tell where the break in the track is. It's much harder to tell because there's much more continuity going through. So if we go around here, and you really can't see it. If I run my finger along, I'll feel the break. So it's right here. This is the break. And that's where I had to add more sleepers. But it looks like a nice continuous run of track. And I did that all the way around. So the next thing I have to do before I put any of the ballast down is I have to wire up all of the turnouts that I just put in. Well, those I didn't just put in, they've been there forever. But now that they're connected to something, I have to wire them up. Same thing over here. I have to wire these up. And once those are wired up, then I can begin ballasting. And the wiring shouldn't take too long. I just have to tap in where the wire is here. Just tap into that and run it to each one. And it's interesting, when I get these, and I think, are these Atlas? Let me take a look. I believe they're Atlas. Oh, and I ripped it right off. Yeah, Atlas. There it is. So these are Atlas. And they normally come with this green, light green button. All of the other ones have light green, but for some reason, this one had a dark blue button. And so I figured, oh, that makes sense for the pond or the lake, whatever this will end up being. So this will indicate it goes out over the pond this way. Now, arguably, this one could go out over the pond this way, but I'm just doing that to make sense in my brain. So this one I put on the very end, and the rest of them are all light green. Yeah, and so that is the next step, wiring it up, and that's really not too difficult. You got the connectors here. There are 3 different wires, black, red, and green, and they get screwed into here with the bolts they provide. I just drill down here and then run the wire up and connect through here, and then this gets connected, the power gets connected onto here. There are power connectors on each side here, and that's jumped across to this one. And then these 3 get connected onto these 3 here and these 3 here. And it's nice because I have the wiring all set for me here. Red, black, green, red, black, green. So I know exactly where it goes. And there's the red and black there. So I know black is at the top, red is at the bottom. So that'll be easy enough to set up. I have all the wires, so off we go. After a few hours of work, I got everything wired up. And the Atlas switchers are pretty easy. I mean, you got green, black, red, and then green, black, red. And over here, you have green, black, red. So, doesn't really take much electrical knowledge. It's pretty simple. And they work great. no problem there. And the same over here. And then over there. Yep, so these are all working like a charm. So that is another project done. Now I can start ballasting. Well, I've run into an unexpected problem. Watch this. Not that. This. It all falls off the track. And I don't know why, because everything was working fine the other day. The culprit is right here. Right where it joins. It feels smooth. I really don't know what's causing it to jump the track. It doesn't, because it was, like I said, it's been running fine. And all of a sudden it decided it's not going to run fine. I have no idea. So, and it's right here. It's right at this joint. Everything goes fine, and right when it gets to this joint, it just comes off the track. Now, if you look straight down on it, it's sort of a little bit off, like maybe a millimeter. This one's off to that side, but I don't see how that would cause that much of an issue, because this one would have to be the same, and I've run the train through here many times, and it no problem. So I'm not sure why this is no longer functioning. Guess I'll just have to keep looking at the issue. All right, watch this. So, it's not just this side of the track. This whole thing got out of alignment somehow, and I have no idea how. Like I said, yesterday everything was working fine. Put it together today, and nothing is working. And I have no clue why. The only thing I can think of is somehow this thing shifted. I mean, it can move by like a fraction of an inch, but I can't see. I just don't get it. I don't get it. It should not have, because these are all locked in, all the little teeth here on the Model Tech things, so I don't know. All right, now look at this. It's running perfectly fine now. And all I did was just nudge this a little bit that way, and it's perfect. So it was just like a couple of millimeters at the most, and that's what threw it off. So let me set this, see how long it takes me to do this, but let me set this up on this track over here. And if I can do this in a reasonable amount of time, there we go. Let's see if that did it. No, it didn't do it. Da, 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 da. All right, let's try this again. There we are. All right, let's try that. Okay, it's going backwards. Let's go forwards. And it doesn't want to go forward. You want to go backward? No, it doesn't want to do anything. Oh, Lordy. There we go. All these little adjustments. There we go. Yeah, perfect. has no problem at all. And back the other way. So, important safety tip. I'm going to have to make sure, what I probably should do is when I set this up, about to run it, I should just take a random car like my little tanker car and just roll it across here to make sure it makes it fine. If it doesn't, I just give it a little nudge, and that will set it into place. So thankfully, I don't have to rebuild this whole thing. That was my terrifying thought that I had, was that, oh my God, it's all ballasted. I'm gonna have to rip everything out and start everything over from scratch. But I don't have to, so that's good. So now let me concentrate on doing the ballasting. I figured that out. The bolts under here were starting to come loose. So I tightened them up, and I'm going to put some Loctite on there, and that should take care of it. That was it. Now it's very sturdy. You can't move it at all. And I tested it, and it runs through just beautifully. So no problems there. So, whew, dodged a bullet on that one. All right, onward and upward. I just discovered something. I basically have two separate independent loops on this track. Didn't even realize I did that. And I can run two sets of trains simultaneously that never meet each other. So as this one comes around here, the Union Pacific goes off this way, and the Conrail goes on the long outside loop there. The only place where there could be a collision would be right over here. Here comes the Union Pacific, but I think they're going to miss each other. Yeah. Perfect. Now, if that had a long consist on it, yeah, no, they'd collide. But little short runs like this seem to work really well. So an unexpected benefit of the way I set it up. I got a whole new set of cars off of eBay, and it said new in the box. What I didn't realize is the boxes were from the 1960s and 70s and had all the old style couplers on them. So, not exactly ideal, but what I did is I moved this track back more, and now these trains can pass with no problem. As you can hear, these are really inexpensive plastic cars that have very little weight, and they have plastic wheels, so they're not the most smooth running cars, but for now it gives me a little more rolling stock to put on here. Well, my massive buy from eBay of about 32 pieces of rolling stock didn't turn out to be that much of a bargain after all. because I found that since it has plastic trucks and the couplers are attached to the trucks and they were kept hanging up and they wouldn't turn properly and the trains just kept derailling. So what I did is I ordered myself some decent rolling stock. This time, steel wheels and weighted cars, and what a difference. Now some of them had some missing couplers, but I have spare couplers, so that's not a big deal. But it is amazing how much smoother everything's running now. No derailing, everything's nice and quiet. So, important safety tip. I need to check my rolling stock so that it has what I'm looking for with the new style couplers and steel wheels and weighted cars. And if they're not weighted, I can weight them because I have some weights. But at least now I know not to cheap out on it. Get decent rolling stock and you'll have fewer problems. All right, on to ballasting. So I've got my little ballast cup here, and I'm just gonna fill it up with my mix of black and gray ballast. And then from here, it's remarkably simple. So I'm just gonna line it up. It's got little notches on the bottom that line up with the track. I'm just gonna line it up. And then I'm just going to pull this out a little bit. And it's easy as that. I just follow the track and it automatically puts the right amount of ballast on the track. It's just incredible. And that exhausted all that, so I'll just close that back up. And now I'll just do this section. I'll spray it down and glue it. So what I want to first do is I want to take my little brush and just brush some of that in so that it actually shows the ties a little bit more. That also ensures that there's not as much ballast that's going to be grinding into the track. So once I do that, and I can fill in a little more here just manually. In fact, let me do that now. I'll just take my little spoon and I'll just fill in this area here that didn't get covered. And on the side. And I was gonna pull up this roadway originally, but it's all glued down and it would have been a mess. So instead what I'm gonna do is, once I get all this finished, I'm just gonna build up this roadway again, make a nice smooth transition over to this section here. So now I've got my wet water, which is simply water combined with a little bit of dish detergent. Let me spread this out a little bit more. Dum-dee-dum. There we go. That's pretty good. Let me get this out of the way. All right, I'll get the wet water and just spray it. Don't want to spray too violently because it'll bunch up all of the ballast. Just want to get it nice and wet. And the reason you're doing this is because if you were to try to put the glue on without this, the glue would basically just pool up and disappear. It wouldn't stick to the ballast. Yeah, just spread this a little more here. There we go. All right, and now here's my mix of 50-50 water and glue. And I just daub that on. And you want to coat it really nice, both on and off the track, so that it all adheres. The ballast, it can be pretty nasty stuff. It can get everywhere because it's so fine. You sneeze, it'll go all over the room. And it's probably not a good idea to inhale this stuff. So I'm just spreading the glue all around there. And you notice I'm just doing it in small sections. I'm not trying to bite off a huge amount on this. Now, of course, I have the turnouts and the points, you know, the 4 of them. And those are a little trickier because you don't want to get, obviously, you don't want to get ballast inside the points because then it won't work. And there are some YouTube videos, some tutorials on how to do that. So I'm not going to get into that right now, but notice it looks pretty messy, but when this dries, it'll all absorb into the ballast, and the ballast will be basically rock hard after that, and you won't have to worry about it flying all over the place. It also really helps stabilize the track, so the track will not move at all after this, and that really helps for the tracking of the trains. So yeah, so all I gotta do now is just finish up all the rest of the track that doesn't have ballast, but that's essentially the procedure. It's not very hard, it's just a tedious and slow process, but made a lot quicker by this little gadget. This is really nice, I like that. One little detail I forgot before I finished ballasting all this is I needed a turnout to do that little spur I wanted to put over here. So I had to order that, wait for it to come in. So now I have a nice little turnout here, and I'm not going to wire this up because I'm rarely going to use it. I'll just manually switch it when I need to. For most of the time, it'll just stay in this position, so the trains will pass that way. The only time I'm going to use that is if I want to store one of the engines. I can just store it over in that area for the time being. So, and what I might think of doing at some point is replacing the joiners here with the non-conductive style, so that if I'm running the line, this one won't be live. I can just keep it as a storage area and trains won't automatically start up there. But for now, this will do just fine. I got that done, and I did the cork the correct way. I split it in half and flipped it around so that it's beveled on each side. Yeehaw. Which I should have done from the beginning, but I didn't know any better until somebody told me that. So anyway, that's that. Now I can finish ballasting. Another thing I'm doing here, as I'm using the spreader will put it nice and evenly along the track and the sides, but then the edges don't get anything. So I just take a little spoonful and then I just gently let it slide along there, and that gives a nice slope to the edges. I can do the same thing along here. And it's working much nicer along here because this is the one where I actually use the beveled edges of the cork, so it slides down in a more natural way, as opposed to these that drop off very abruptly. But that works out very nicely. What I did notice on some of the other places where I did this is that the track shorted out where there was no electricity running through it anymore, and I couldn't figure out why, so all I did was I just took some solder where the joiners were and I just put a little solder across there and it fixed the problem. So I don't know. Ding dong. I don't know why the ballast was making that disconnect, but it's fixed. Yeah, so just slow going here, taking my time with it. Nice therapeutic, you know. The ballasting is done. It looks like there's a massive color difference between this ballast and that. I could probably use paint to fade that a little bit if that turns out. I think this is going to dry darker though. But anyway, yes, it is done all the way around the whole thing, except for the turnouts. I know how to do the turnouts now, but it's more of a delicate thing that I have to do there, so I want to give myself a little time to just do that very gradually to make sure I don't screw anything up there. That would be bad. But outside of that, the whole layout is done. And now my next item of business is to fix a lot of these old cars, the ones I got off of eBay that have all the plastic wheels on them. I did get myself a whole boatload of steel trucks. So what I'm gradually doing is, you can see I did it with this caboose, which is a nice caboose, but it was weighted, but it had plastic wheels on it. So I took the whole thing apart and I'm going to put the steel trucks on there, and I also have to put the new couplers because they all have these old style couplers on them, which are not ideal. In fact, they don't work with the knuckle couplers I have. So gradually replacing all of those, and almost all of these, the coupler is attached right to the truck. So I got to take the whole truck and throw it out and then put a new truck on there and a new coupler. So, but I will have lots and lots of rolling stock when I am done. So that's good. And for now, I'll let this dry. It'll take a couple days, and then we'll move on to the next project.